Shabbat Shalom and welcome to Grim Survival. Sorry, moving the microphone, it was a little too far away. This is the Bible study reading. We're going to be picking up at Genesis 29 for all of those who've been following along. I would like to mention that I have started to upload all of the Bible readings to the secondary channel. It's Grim Survival BC. Yeah, that's what it was. BC, backup channel is what it stands for. So, I'm started uploading all of the Bible studies there. I will catch up as I go, so this one won't be on there just yet, but as soon as I get to it, it will, because I want to put them all in order so that they're easier to find and keep track of. Otherwise, it'll get all jumbled and, yeah, it'll be a mess. So, in order to keep it in order, I am going to be posting them one at a time. I'll try to get a few of them up each day, but yeah, won't be doing it today, so pick back up on Sunday. Alright, starting where I usually do, I am going to quote and read the Shema, as I usually do. That's found in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. And the reason I do this is because these are the words that are supposed to be burned into your head and on your heart so that you never forget where we come from and who is in control. You're supposed to teach these words according to this book to your children, and you can look up in the New Testament where Yeshua himself actually told us that this was the most important thing to do. So, yeah. Anyway, Deuteronomy 6, verse 4. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh our Elohim, Yahweh is one. And you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all of your heart, with all of your being, and with all of your might. It's that simple. It really is that simple. Yeah. Obviously, there's more to your salvation than just that, but that is the number one thing to start with. Number one. So, yeah. Anyway, we left off Genesis 28. Where was I? Genesis 28. Talking about Jacob and Esau, his brother, and how that went back and forth a little bit, and Jacob ended up fleeing to go find the wife and went to his relative's house to find a wife down in Kentucky. Alright, sorry. Anyway, you know. Sorry for that. Yeah. Anyway, Genesis 29, I'm not sure how far I will get. I'm reading this in the evening time on Friday. The Sabbath has started, but I had other things I was doing, so I'm a little bit late in my reading. I usually do it earlier in the day, so I'm fairly tired, and I don't have any coffee with me for this particular reading, so yeah, that's a downside to this. But I will do my best and butcher as many Hebrew names as I possibly can, as I typically do. So, here we go. Alright. 29. And Jacob lifted up his feet and came to the land of the sons of the east. And he looked and saw a well in the field, and saw 3 flocks of sheep lying by it. For out of that well they watered the flocks. A large stone was on the well's mouth. And all the flocks would be gathered there, and they would roll the stone from the well's mouth and water the sheep. And put the stone back in its place on the well's mouth. Obviously. So Jacob said to them, My brothers, where are you from? And they said, We are from Haran. And he said to them, Do you know Laban, son of Nahor? And they said, We know him. So he said to them, Is he well? And they said, Well, and see, his daughter Rachel is coming with the sheep. It's actually pronounced, I believe, Rahel, maybe? Rahel. R-A-H-E-L in Hebrew. So, but I'm going to stick with Rachel. Verse 7. And he said, See, it is still high day, not the time for the livestock to be gathered together. Water the sheep and go feed them. But they said, We are not allowed. All the flocks are gathered together, and they have rolled the stone from the well's mouth. Then we shall water the sheep." While he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. And it came to be, when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, that Jacob went near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Do you think it was his mother's brother? And Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept. And when Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's relative and that he was Rebekah's son, she ran and told her father. And it came to be, when Laban heard the report about Jacob his sister's son, that he ran to meet him, and embraced him and kissed him, and brought him to his house. Then he told Laban all these matters. And Laban said to him, "You are indeed my bone and my flesh." And he stayed with him for a new moon, a month. Then Laban said to Jacob, "Because you are my relative, should you therefore serve me for naught? Let me know, what should your wages be?" And Laban had 2 daughters. Name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. And Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful of form and beautiful of appearance. And Jacob loved Rachel, so he said, "Let me serve you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter." And Laban said, "It is better I give her to you than I should give her to another man. Stay with me." And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him to be few days, but of the love he had for her. And Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife, for my days are completed, and let me go into her." And Laban gathered all the men of the place and made a feast. And it came to be in the evening that he took Leah his daughter and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. And Laban gave his female servant Zilpah, his daughter Leah, as a female servant, to his daughter as a female servant. And in the morning it came to be that, see, it was Leah. So he had said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? Was it not for Rachel that I served you? Why then have you deceived me?" And Laban said, "It is not done this way in our place, to give the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week of this one, and we give you this one too. For the service which you shall serve me is still another 7 years." That wasn't right. And Jacob did so and completed her week, and then gave him his daughter Rachel too as a wife. And Laban gave his female servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as a female servant. And he also went into Rachel, and he also loved Rachel more than Leah. And he served with Laban still another 7 years. And Yahweh saw that Leah was unloved, and he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben, for she said, "For Yahweh has looked on my affliction, because now my husband is going to love me." And she conceived again and bore a son, and said, "Because Yahweh has heard that I am unloved, he gave me this son too." And she called his name Shimon. And she conceived again and bore a son, and said, "Now this time my husband is joined to me, because I have bore him 3 sons." So his name was called Levi, I would assume. And she conceived again and bore a son, and said, "Now praise Yahweh." So she has called his name Yehudah. And she ceased bearing. That's an interesting... The way they word things in the book is very interesting, especially in the more literal translation that this particular copy is. If you've ever done any research on where they got the text and where they translated this from, as opposed to where things like the King James and the other newer translations come from, this one came from the original Hebrew, while the other ones were translated from the Greek. So the wording in here is a little long-winded, in my opinion. There's a lot of things that could have been said in basic English a little easier. But hey, I still like this one better. I really do. I'm going to go ahead and leave 30, or well, not leave, but read 30. And I will probably leave off right there, just because, like I said, I'm very tired today, and it's almost my bedtime. So, yeah, I will get through 30, and we'll see how that goes. All right, chapter 30. And when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister and said to Jacob, "Give me children, or else I'm going to die." That's rather demanding. And Jacob's displeasure burned against Rachel, and he said, "I am in the place of Elohim, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb." That sounds familiar, doesn't it? It's like a commercial for underwear. But this was womb, not loom. Anyway, verse 3. And she said, "See my female servant Bilhah. I'm bad with these names. Go into her and let her bear for me, and let me build up from her as well." So she gave him Bilhah, her female servant, as a wife, and Jacob went into her. And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. And Rachel said, "Elohim has rightly ruled my case, and has also heard my voice, and given me a son." So she called his name Dan. D-A-N, it's Dan. Verse 7. And Rachel's female servant Bilhah conceived again, and bore Jacob a second son. And Rachel said, "With great wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister, and I have overcome." So she called his name Naphtali, I guess. And Leah saw that she had ceased bearing, and she took Zilpah, her female servant, and gave her to Jacob as a wife. And Leah's female servant Zilpah bore Jacob a son. And Leah said, "Fortune comes." So she called his name Gad. And Leah's female servant Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. And Leah said, "I am happy, for the daughters shall call me happy." So she called his name Asher. And Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest, and found love apples in the field, and brought them to his mother Leah. And Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's love apples." What's a love apple? But she said to her, "It is a small matter that you have taken away my husband. Would you take away my son's love apples too?" And Rachel said, "Therefore, let him lie with you tonight for your son's love apples." These women are trading the man around for fruit, right? I mean, that's what that sounds like to me. 16. And when Jacob came out of the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, "Do come into me, for indeed I have hired you with my son's love apples." And he lay with her that night. And Elohim listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. And Leah said, "Elohim has given me my hire, because I have given my female servant to my husband." So she called his name Yishakar. That's an interesting one. And Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. And Leah said, "Elohim has presented me with a good present. Now my husband is going to dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons." So she called his name Zebulun, I guess. And afterward she bore a daughter, and called her name Dinah. And Elohim remembered Rachel, and Elohim listened to her, and opened her womb. And she conceived and bore a son, and said, "Elohim has taken away my reproach." So she called his name Joseph, and said, "Yahweh has added me another son." Joseph is actually pronounced, I believe, Yosef, because there is no J in Hebrew. 25. And it came to be, when Rachel had bore Joseph, that Jacob said to Laban, "Send me on my way to go to my own place and to my land. Give my wives and my children for whom I have served you, and let me go. for you yourself know my service which I have done for you. And Laban said to him, If I have found favor in your eyes, please stay, for I have diligently watched that Yahweh has blessed me for your sake. And he said, Name me your wage, and I give it. So he said to him, You know how I have served you, and how your livestock have been with me. For the little you had before I came has increased greatly, and Yahweh has blessed you since my coming. But now, when I am provided for my own house too, when am I to provide for my own house too? Words. 31. Verse 31. And he said, What do I give you? And Jacob said, Give me naught. If you do this for me, I shall again feed and guard your flocks. Let me pass through all your flocks today, removing from there all the speckled and spotted sheep, and all the black ones among the lambs, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and these shall be my wages. And my righteousness shall answer for me in the time to come. When you come concerning my wages, every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and black among the lambs is stolen if it is with me. And Laban said, See, let it be according to your word. And on that day he set aside a male goat that were speckled and spotted, and all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had some white in it, all the black ones among the lambs, and gave them into the hand of his sons. And he put 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. And Jacob took for himself rods of green poplar and the almond and chestnut trees, peeled white strips in them, and exposed the white which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he had peeled before the flocks in the gutters, in the watering troughs where the flocks came to drink. And they conceived when they came to drink. So flocks conceived before the rods, and the flocks brought forth streaked, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob separated the lambs, and made the flocks face toward the streaked, and all the black in the flock of Laban. But he put his own flocks by themselves, and did not put them with Laban's flocks. And it came to be, whenever the strong ones of the flocks conceived, that Jacob placed the rods before the eyes of the flock in the gutters, so they would conceive among the rods. But when the flocks were weak, he did not put them in. So the weak ones were Laban's, and the strong ones Jacob's. Thus the man increased very much, and had many flocks, and female and male servants, and camels and donkeys. There's a lot of deception going on in that family, and a lot of passing around of the men, or the male, as it was. That's very interesting, especially when you consider the traditions of and customs of men today, how doing something like that would be considered against God or Elohim, and yet Elohim blessed Jacob. So yeah, just something to think about, I guess. I don't recommend it, because I'm pretty sure if you have a wife or a husband and you're trying to share your husband, well, I don't know if your husband would mind, but your wife would. Even if your wife gave her servant to you, if you're the husband, yeah, I don't think that would go over too well for you. So I would highly recommend not taking that ever so literally in your own pursuits in life. So I'll leave it at that. It has started raining here outside. It's a good time to sleep to the sounds of rain. So I am going to end this one right here with just the 2 chapters. I will try to read another couple of chapters sometime midweek, like I try to do. I don't always get to it, but I try. Yeah, so thank you guys for watching. I hope you have a very blessed day, a very blessed weekend. Hanukkah started actually on the 10th, which was my birthday, the first day of Hanukkah. I've been studying a bit about Hanukkah and why a lot of people say that it is biblical, and I've also heard the opposite side of that story too. So I'm doing my own research on this subject, because I know Christmas itself is not biblical. It is not. And what Christmas has become to the nation, the United States right now, Christmas has become just it's an atrocity, in my opinion. It really is. It's just a reason to go spend money on stuff people don't need and spoil their children. So, but that's just my opinion. I'm not trying to convince you. Yeah, my kids are still getting gifts, but I probably am not doing it on the 25th of December just because I don't want to contribute to the traditions of men, and I don't want to teach my children to conform to such things. So, hey, that's just what I do. I'm not trying to tell you you should also. But anyway, this was James with Grim Survival. Like I said, have a very blessed day, very blessed weekend. Happy Sabbath, Happy Hanukkah, and Merry Christmas.